Hello, hello. It's incredibly hot right now. Um, I don't think my mic is picking it up. I've got the air conditioner one room over going pretty much full blast to try to stave off this upper 90s heat wave that has rolled in and brought with it extremely high humidity as well. It's just terrible. Um, but I'm not going to let that deter me. I'm actually cooking something not only hot, not only potentially in the oven, but also definitely boiled. So that's going to be fun. Uh, I have a have a bit of a take something I already was planning on doing and stick it onto a coincidental happenstance. Today's Flag Day in the U.S. I'm not exactly sure what Flag Day is, but it sounds very patriotic. I was already planning to make all-American meatballs today, and it's Flag Day, so we'll just put those things together. Um, what do I mean by all-American meatballs? Well, spaghetti and meatballs is a classic, like American dish. Uh, the Italians don't make spaghetti or meatballs the way the Americans make spaghetti and meatballs. Um, but the American spaghetti and meatballs is all almost entirely Italian ingredients and like European ingredients. I want to make spaghetti and meatballs other than the spaghetti, which I couldn't find a corn-based pasta that I was willing to eat. Uh, we can get to that toward the end. I might end up doing even grits or something, some as the starch component. But I want to make specifically, I want to make the meatballs with American ingredients, like things that are actually native to the Americas. That's the impetus here. And it's pretty much because I found some bison and I want to work with some bison. Um, Here's the bison. Let's get it out. Bison. The price of meat, you may have noticed, has been going up spectacularly fast, along with everything else, but it seems to be outpacing it a lot. But if you pay closer attention, it's only certain meat. Bison has been more expensive than beef for a long, long, long time. Um, but lately, although the price of bison has also gone up, it has not gone up nearly as fast as the price of beef. So they're actually very comparable right now. But people don't buy the bison because they don't. I guess they're just unfamiliar with trying to cook with it. So it ends up in the bargain bin a lot more often. Um, so you can get it at an actual discount, which is great, which is what I want. So once again, discount meat. It's used by today, so yeah, used by today, but we're going to use it today, so no problem there. So that's the part one of our all-American meatballs. My sign up there. I'll start filling some things in here on my countertop. Should probably take the price tag off. So ingredient one for our American dish, bison meat. Ingredient two, interestingly enough, tomato. Tomatoes are native to the Americas. So we can keep that part of our spaghetti and meatballs intact. I've actually got canned, crushed, or diced tomatoes up here. So I don't have to dice my own whole tomato. I've got one, but I don't have to use it. I can just use crushed up tomatoes. Uh, the interesting thing that happened today with it was that I was going out to get some herbs for this. And on my way to the store, I drove past a greenhouse. And I decided I'll poke my head in and see if they've got those herbs I was looking for. and they only had one of the two. That greenhouse did not have any tarragon, which turns out is native to the U.S. They did have sage. The price of a small plant of a small sage plant, is similar to the price of fresh sage from the grocery store, except I don't have to use it up right away because it's in a pot and it'll just keep growing. And actually, if I had a plot to plant it in, it's hardy outdoors all the way up to growing zone 4. So I'd say if you've got your own land, plant some sage. It should just grow outside fine, and you can clip it off, and it's an herb. You don't need to baby it. You just stick it in the ground, let it go. So that's fun. Tarragon, I guess, does that too, but I couldn't find the tarragon, so I've actually picked up some dried tarragon. I've never used tarragon, so I actually need to give it a taste test, which we'll open it up and see what it tastes like now. So when we get to the point of actually needing the sage, I'm gonna have to duck outside and grab some fresh sage from my brand new sage plant. Ooh, that's a fun. Ooh, huh. Wow, that's an interesting herb. They're just little leaves. They kind of look like blades of grass. Hmm. I like it. It's not like herbs I'm familiar with using. Uh, Now that I've got it, I guess I can experiment with it. Um, huh. It's hmm. It's an unfamiliar flavor, so I'm having a hard time describing it. I can't say it tastes like this other herb because it doesn't. It's got some pungency to it. It reminds me a little of oregano, but not a lot of oregano. Hmm. We might need to do some research before we dive in on that, but I will put it there. Tarragon. Turns out tarragon, native. Turns out allspice, also native. So we're going to have an interesting spice blend here. Um, Turns out all chili peppers are also native. So I won't be adding black pepper to this, but I can certainly add some red pepper. Garlic and onion are free reign because there are varieties of garlic and varieties of onion everywhere. I think there's some in my front yard, actually. Uh, so yeah, and I'm going to resort to a few other odds and ends that I think I couldn't find good substitutes for. But this is the idea. The idea is the main flavors are going to be American flavors. So the herbs and spices and the meat. Uh, and I have an interesting idea to go with it because if you'll recall from last week, I had a fun cheese that I was working with. This stuff. I've still got some. This is Oaxaca. I had to take the packaging off of it, so it's just in a bag. And as always, cheese kind of poofs its own bag. It outgasses into its own bag. This is a Mexican cheese. So I want to make cheese-filled meatballs, cheese-filled bison meatballs, like little Juicy Lucy's. If you're familiar with the Juicy Lucy of Minnesota fame, which is a hamburger patty with cheese in the middle. You bite into it, just kind of gooshes out. Um, I want to get little like cubes of this stuff inside the meatballs. Uh, yeah, that's the plan. We'll start by opening this guy. See if this has got an easy peel on it. It does not, so I will get into it with a blade. Don't want to get the those are my herb scissors. I've got them ready, so I don't know where they are when I end up needing them later. I don't really want to get them covered in meat juice, though, so let's just do this with a paring knife. Oh, and we're going to need a bowl for that. Don't want to waste any of this. Little bits caught in the corners. Now, it was shrink wrapped, so it's already going to be kind of overworked compared to if you bought ground meat that was just fresh, uh, like fresh ground in in a non-vacuum pack thing. So I'm going to try to work it gently so that it doesn't become super glue meat. But that's the problem with those shrink wrap ones for ground meat. It's already kind of glue. Chemical! Oh my god! And you're raiding. Welcome in, raiders. Welcome in, Chemical. We're just getting started. I'm breaking up this brick of bison meat. Tell me about what you were doing. I don't have any bots set up, so I can't give you a bot shout out, but I can certainly give you a verbal shout out. Our good friend Chemical is here. Yeah, a few games. I've seen people doing demos. I guess there's a bunch of demos coming up. Uh, Watch Dogs 2 kept crashing. Redball. There's a Redball game. Is that new or is that like an old one from when the book series was really popular? Yeah, I'm gonna rinse my hands off because I'm gonna do things that don't involve handling raw meat for a moment here. Oh, old, but not that old. Steam Next Fest. Okay, I haven't I've been paying much attention to Steam these days, so I probably just zipped right by me. Um, Fourth standalone. Uh, okay, okay. I'm gonna duck outside real quick, grab that sage, bring it back so I don't have to duck out later. So I will. I'll talk about how hot it is as I go outside. Oh my god, it's hot. Oh my god, it's so hot. Oh, it's so hot. I hate it. Oh my god, it's so hot. I'm coming back. It's just hot. Oh why? Oh lordy, it's hot. Okay, back inside. It's like walking into an open oven out there. Fresh garden sage that I just bought. I took off the. How hot is it? It's hot. It's 95 according to my weather app. I don't have an outside thermometer. It's tell you how hot it is inside. I got one on the wall here, and they disagree. We got two on the wall right next to each other, and they disagree with each other. It's about 75 inside, but my air conditioner has been running full blast all day. Um, it's too hot to go out for him to be outside. Felix, welcome in, Felix. It's too hot. Make him to come inside. Um, uh, anyways, my intro. I don't know. Someone was here for the intro. I saw a viewer, but the intro, for those who have missed it, the idea here is I want the flavors of these meatballs to be all American flavors, all like native to the Americas flavors, which means no basil, no oregano. Although I have that Cuban oregano, which isn't real oregano, but it has a very similar flavor, so I could use some of that. Uh, this is sage. The meat is bison meat. It turns out tarragon and allspice are native spices. Fortunately for the project here, because I'm making spaghetti and meatballs, tomatoes are in fact native, as are onions and peppers. So this isn't as much challenge as it may have sounded. Um, but the herbs are what's going to make it interesting. I need a board for these guys. And I also mentioned at the beginning that I just bought a sage from a greenhouse because it was the same price as getting sage from the grocery store that was all picked that I'd have to use up right away. And in this way, I get all of this nice sage, and the part I don't use just lives outside and grows more sage. And it was the same price. So, like, why would I not do it this way? All I've got to do is remember to water it. Make a little pile so that I can slice through them real quick. Now, the noodles are the tricky part because I couldn't find corn-based noodles. Corn is the American grain. So unless we are willing to go with wheat noodles, my only really recourse is to say that it's not spaghetti and meatballs, it's polenta and meatballs. Because I've got cornmeal. I can make cornmeal. I can do cornmeal. Okay, thank you for the lurk, Chemical. Thank you for the raid. Exciting. I think that's my third ever raid. I've lost track. My activity tracker doesn't go back that far. But thank you as always. Glad to see you on this fine Flag Day. My sage is outside in 95. My sage is outside the 95, having been freshly watered. Uh, so hopefully it's fine. Keeping an eye on the temperatures and all of my herbs out there. I've got a bunch of herbs. Some of them are Mediterranean herbs, so they're absolutely loving the heat. Some of them less so. I think my onion babies might not make it to adulthood. I actually pulled a few of them out of their pots and put them into the ground so that I could have those pots for my brand newly acquired sage plant, and because the onion babies are looking rather dried out. Also, hi, Wee Former. You keep giving me subs in other people's chats. How dare? Um, oh, and Bookwoman's here too. I didn't measure this, and I know fresh herbs are usually more pungent than dried. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Um, so the flavors I'm adding here are sage, tarragon, allspice, which I'm going to grind up, and Bookwoman's back. You're back. Welcome in. We're having an exciting time here. Allspice is an interesting spice. It's quite strong in my experience, so I'm adding a few grains of it here, and I'm going to grind it up in my mortar. I also find that it grinds up quite well, so we're going to powder it as finely as I can to get it evenly distributed, because I don't want is to bite into it and get little chunks of the allspice. If you don't use allspice, you should. It's all the spices. They grind them up and turn them into these little brown seeds, and then they have you regrind them up. That's not true. I am lying to you. It was named allspice by an Englishman who tasted it and thought it tasted like cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves mixed together, and so he just called it allspice, which is lame. And some tarragon, which again I'm not measuring, just throwing some in. That was about a little middle of palm's worth. I've never cooked with tarragon, as I was mentioning earlier. I don't know what to do with it. I'm throwing it in here because it's one of the spices I was able to narrow down as a real American spice, but I don't know much about it. Here's an interesting tidbit. See if I can find them in my packed freezer. Yeah, there you go. Ooh, those are icy. So when I make a loaf of bread and it gets down to the end and it's all dried out, and I don't eat it, I cube it up and chuck it in my freezer. So I've got frozen bread cubes, frozen homemade bread cubes, and they clearly dehydrate as they're in there, and then they form these big icy chunks, which I will not be throwing into my mix here. But these are going to be my breadcrumbs. I think we're going to have to pull out the blender for this, and that'll be a test, an experiment to see if the blender deafens everyone on the stream. I'll run it quick to see if anyone can stand it. I'm sorry, gentlemen. We're going to have to move the gentleman. And a tiny whisk can go live over here on the side. I need the top part. That'd be good. Get the top part of the blender as well. So I'm making my own breadcrumbs. The herb's already in there. Loud noise warning? Here, I'll do a pulse, and I'll ask you how it is, and if it's real bad, I'll mute it while I do this. How was that? Was that too loud? Okay, great. Then I will. Here's a problem. My I know the mic's near my face, so I was hoping it would be fine, and it turns out it is. I need to move my color correcting sheet because it's the blender is vibrating enough to make it want to slide around. Uh, it also seems like these might be too hard. The ones near the bottom are grinding up. The ones near the top are just kind of bouncing around. Um, I figured it out. I figured it out. I put it on ice crush because they're frozen. It worked fine. So, breadcrumbs. I don't know if that's enough. It's like it's a quarter of a liter. It's about just shy of 1 cup of breadcrumbs. Um, I gotta take a reference. How much breadcrumbs? Crumbs for meatballs. Um, hmm, half a cup. Uh, this is saying that it takes careful balancing to make the perfect meatball, but it doesn't actually tell me what the thing is. Oh, there it is. 1 pound meat to half a cup of breadcrumbs. So I've got a little bit more than I need. Now, it's not here. I'll put it into a container that's easier to see. And I can move the blender. They're not really consistently sized. There's some big and small ones, and they're also still a little bit frozen, and they're very dry. I might actually end up doing a little soak of these just to get them moistened. There's one stuck under my blade. Careful, careful, careful. Okay, get this guy out of the way. So yeah, that's just about a cup. So I've got about twice as much as I need. Um, it's hard to gauge when I'm pulling them out of the frozen bag, but well, maybe I can come up with something to do with the extra breadcrumbs. So let's use half of that. I don't want to go too low. There's also going to be an egg going into this. I don't have an American egg. I wasn't able to find an appropriate American duck egg. Sadly, I know it's a tragedy. It's going to ruin the whole thing, but we're going to have to resort to a chicken's egg. I think because these crumbs are not as fine as real breadcrumbs. That I'm going to confidently go with half a cup and then a little pinch. I'll set those, the other half of those aside and get rid of my blender so I can reclaim my workspace here. Okay. So what we've got in there is meat, bread, allspice, sage, tarragon, and one egg. Here comes the one egg. The speckly one. Fun story about eggs. You may have noticed the price of eggs has gone up. The price of some eggs has gone up. If you're buying the cheapest bulk white chicken's eggs from your grocery store, you'll definitely have noticed that the price has gone up. My eggs were already about triple the price of those eggs, and my eggs have not gone up. This is a farm, not a local farm. It's not a small farm. It's a farm, maybe 50 miles away. That's a big, like, production farm. But they haven't raised their prices as far as I can tell. I was just thinking if I want to put anything else in this before I start mashing it up, because I don't want to mash it a lot more. I don't want to mash it any more than I have to because the meat is already kind of mashed together. So before I dive in, can you think of anything else I should put in here? I can. We can't do black pepper because black pepper is from somewhere in Asia. We could do salt. Salt comes from everywhere. Pinch of salt. This one works because garlic, maybe not this variety of garlic specifically, but there are garlics native to the area. I think there's one growing out in my front yard, actually. So some garlic powder. I've also got onion granules. And I've got this kind of pepper. We could throw one of those in. That might be too hot for this application. I might end up throwing that in the sauce because we got to make a sauce too. I'm going to throw some onion granules in here as well. Oop, they were stuck. So I think the hot pepper might be reserved for the sauce. So the best way to mix this is with these two tools. I call them meat whisks. And you just kind of whisk the meat with them. And they work because they're also made of meat. So the meat recognizes them and it whisks more easily. And I want to get I need to get this mixed until, especially the egg, isn't recognizably separated from any of the rest of this. Because the egg and the bread is both a filler and a binder, and it'll help soak up the fat that renders out of the meat as it cooks. The egg is just a binder, and you really want it to be well distributed. But if you overwork the meat, it can become rubbery. And I want it to be a little bit worked, but I don't want it to be super worked. If it does end up too dry because I've overworked it, we can save that by trying to simmer it in the sauce. I think we got a pretty well blended mix there. You can see it's already become quite a bit more like a cohesive paste than it was. I'm actually going to wash my hands now because I should have gotten that cheese out before I did this so that I could have pieces of it. Because if you missed that part of the description, these aren't just going to be meatballs. These are going to be cheese-filled meatballs using this cheese. We used this cheese. We grated this cheese. What did I make with that? I'm losing track. I've made so many things. I'm forgetting the things I've made. Because I grated this the last time we saw it, and this time I'm cutting into little cubes. This is the Oaxaca, which is a Mexican cheese, very similar to mozzarella in terms of its flavor and texture and melting behavior. So, I'm blanking. What did I? Oh, it was the Mexican pizza. Yes, exactly. I just remembered it. Wish you guys would have helped me remember that. No. Thank you. Yes, it was the Taco Bell Mexican pizza, which I topped with this stuff because I wanted a melty cheese. Now it is a Mexican cheese, but I believe that it is a Mexican cheese that originated after European colonization introduced cheeses, and it's not like a traditionally American thing. Cheese is just kind of that weird thing. But it's a very tasty cheese. If you've never tried it, it comes in this funny shape. I don't know how much I'm going to need, so I'm taking extra here, and I can just snack on the bits if I have too many. And who knows? I might need to cut more. There were some breadcrumbs on the bottom of the cheese now. If you've never had it, it's tasty. It's like a slightly softer mozzarella. It's almost as soft as like a fresh mozzarella that you get in uh, the liquid when they come packed in the liquid. It's almost as soft as that, but it's dry like a low moisture mozzarella. All right, I was ducking down into my drawer of wonders because I am going to now. I should have planned this out. I didn't plan this out at all because we never plan things around here. You can make meatballs on the stove or in the oven, and I have not preheated my oven, which suggests that I'm probably going to do them on the stove. But that makes it harder to make sure that they're cooked all the way through. So we might end up simmering them in a sauce as well. So I should probably actually get the sauce part started now as well, and then start constructing these things. So let's do that. So we're gonna divert our attention because I'm all unfocused again. We're gonna get our big steel pan, come over to the stove. Come over to the stove. Suppose I not quite coming over to the stove because I have to open the can. tomatoes have become so integrated into our perception of Italian food at this point that most people don't even realize they are from the Americas. The Italians didn't have them until after European explorers came back from America with them. And here's a fun fact: I can't remember his name. I have to look this up. But the tomato was thought to be poisonous amongst the citizens of some country in Europe where it was first pushed for a food item, because it is a nightshade, and nightshade fruit is toxic for most of the nightshades. Uh, and to finally prove it, that it was safe to eat, he got a tomato, he went onto a public square in front of a crowd of people, and took a big old bite of it. That may be apocryphal, but it's a neat story. So that's a can of diced tomato. There's probably already salt in it. Less than 2% of, yeah, salt, calcium chloride, and citric acid. So there's already a few things in it. I'm going to give it another pinch of salt, but not too much because there is already some salt in it. Get it bubbling away. I've only got a little bit of tomato paste left, so I'm going to kill that and put it on my list. We also might end up moving it to the back burner. I've only got a tiny bit of tomato paste. I wonder if I have a little can of tomato paste. A little can of coconut milk. A bottle of lobster juice. That's fun. Boy, it's a trip of discovery every time I go into the cupboard here. You never know what you're going to find. I never know what I'm going to find in my own cupboard. I didn't see any more tomato paste, so I'm going to use all of my tomato paste here, but we're going to have to remember to get more. Tomato paste is basically just tomato concentrate. Gives you more tomatoey flavor without more liquid. Okay. What else goes in a typical tomato sauce? I'm going to leave this one chunky, actually. I'm going to let the bits kind of break down as it cooks, but I'm not going to go out of my way to blend it. Tomatoes. I would normally throw basil in here, but I don't. Basil's off the table for today. As is annoyingly some of the common seed items like fennel and cumin. But you know what's not off the table? Coriander. And allspice. I could break out the allspice again. Now, I don't like the leafy part of the coriander plant, which we call cilantro, but I do like the seedy part, which doesn't have that awful soapy flavor to it. So I'm going to crush these guys up. Oh, I probably should have toasted. Oh, well, I've already started crushing, so it's too late now. Should have toasted these in a dry pan, then crushed them up, then thrown them in. So this is taking the place of the fennel seed that I would normally be putting into my sauce. I should have started the sauce first. Oh well, the meat has a chance to will have a chance to rest while I do this before I dive in on it. We'll get this started here. Then when it's kind of throttling, I'll move it to the back burner, and we can use this burner to fry off the meatballs, so they're front and center, and then they can get deposited into the sauce. Um, what else? We could get more sage. We could throw in some more tarragon. Um, I have some bell pepper and some red chilies. I'm going to throw in a red chili. Uh, I kind of want to fry off some onion in a separate pan and put that in. And if I do that, I kind of want to toast the red chili in that carrot. Are carrots American? I gotta find out. I've got a theme that I'm sticking to. Carrots. I have to look these up now. Nope. Nope, no carrot. Carrots are off limits. Oops. All my little seeds are bouncing out. You know what I could use? Oh, you know what I could use? And before I do this, I'll ask right now. I need everyone to respond. Does anyone here know what burdock looks like? A plant. There's a plant growing out of my driveway that I think is burdock. My knife. I'm going to pop out. I might actually go out of range of the mic for this, so I'll try to keep chatting while I go over. I'm going to grab one. I'm going to grab a leaf, bring it back, and show it off. No, I was reading about. That's the thing. I was reading about burdock. The leaves are supposed to be very, very bitter, but the stems you can peel, and they're kind of like celery, but like a bitter celery, but edible. I'm going to grab a leaf. So I'm heading back out into the heat, this time with a knife. Oh my God, it's hot. Uh, so it's awkwardly in front of my car over here. Grab one of these, around, bring it in. We're coming back. It's windy out here. Okay, 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 okay. Okay, we're back. I'm back. It's got surprisingly windy out there. So, countertop. Let's clear the little side screen. So this is the plant. It's got a big leaf. Uh, and this kind of velvety skin, but on this really heavy root, stem. If this is burdock, take the skin off. I'm pretty confident it's not rhubarb. It's very green in the stem, except for a little tiny purple layer on the skin. Um, Now that's my concern: is that if it is rhubarb, wild rhubarb is poisonous. Um, doesn't smell like rhubarb either. Is the thing. It just smells like a leaf. Uh, Tell you what, it doesn't smell nice now that I've peeled it. So I am going to nix the thing because I'm not confident. So out the back it goes. The ants can eat it. Okay, well, it didn't smell great, and that's usually a sign that you shouldn't dive in on it. Um, but I was doing some reading, and I'm told that all parts of the burdock are edible. The leaves are just very. Let's move this cheese before I do this and make a mess, ruin all that cheese. Um, the leaves are just very, very bitter. They're not poisonous. They're just inedibly bitter. Um, but the stems are supposed to be bitter but edible, and the stem on the flower stalk is supposed to actually be almost like celery. None of these guys are flowering, so I can't test that out. But meanwhile, get back to the versions that have things. I might end up digging up the root. Speaking of digging stuff up, uh, my neighbor's old girlfriend planted a bunch of weird plants in their lot, and some of them volunteered into the driveway. And last fall, I noticed one of them, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I hoped it would come back, and it hadn't been coming back this spring. I've just noticed it coming up in the driveway again. And I, again, will need an expert to confirm. But this one was planted by someone rather than just showed up on its own. So that's a good sign. I think it's shiso. And if so, I want to dig it up and stick it in a pot. Not dig up the root, but dig up the whole shebang and stick it in a pot and try to grow it. Um, and figure out what to do with shiso. This is boiling too hard. We got to bring that down to a simmer. Um, So bell pepper. I've got a fragment of a bell pepper here. I'm going to finish up. Now, I've heard of burdock root. It's not a popular ingredient here in America. I've actually mostly heard of it in the context of anime. I guess it's a not uncommon culinary ingredient in Japan. At least not uncommon enough that they wouldn't have included it at all in things. Uh, I've never heard of it. I've never seen it in a cooking show, an American cooking show. I've never seen it in a European cooking show. It's just sort of this odd thing. It's supposed to be very crunchy. Fortunately for me, for this project, some of my favorite flavors and go-to ingredients are definitely American, such as peppers. I should be using the big knife for this, not the tiny little paring knife. Uh, let's see. I was going to saute this before I just threw it in, so that's going to have to. There's the small pan. The small pan was used earlier today. So we'll get that pan warming up with just a dash of oil to get. Actually, a dash of oil and a spritz of this for flavor. Flavor oil. Flavoil. So, yeah, we're going to end up with a chunky saucy thing. Tomatoes take a while to really cook down and give up their flavor anyways, so we've got time. We've got time to make this right. It's one of the very forgiving things about making your own tomato sauce is it's a slow enough process that if you go, oops, I forgot this or I forgot that, you can have plenty of time to chuck it in there. I don't have an onion started, which is good. I hate the last bag of onions I got was so big that I would regularly start one and then put half of it in the fridge and then have half an onion. And I don't like doing that. I like having my onions just be finished. The whole process here is nice and slow enough that I can do all of this, and then while it's cooking, we can discuss the starchy component, whether we want to go with noodles or go with a polenta, and then also make it and have it ready before any of the rest of this is getting into emergency overcooked territory, which is great. Uh, what was I talking about? Shiso. That was a topic I brought up. Does anyone know about shiso, or what to do with it, or what it looks like? I again have only heard of it in the context of anime. Uh, but I guess it's a Japanese herb. Oop, those guys are sizzly. It's a good thing I did not heavily salt the tomatoes when I put them in, because I'm going to need to salt the onions and peppers here to get them to cook down a bit before they go all super brown. No, not shiso. Hi, Goldie. Welcome in. Not shiso peppers. Uh, shiso, the herb. Uh, it is spelled exactly the same as the what you just spelled there. But it's a leafy herb, and I think it's growing in my driveway. So we'll get these guys sautéed, just starting to brown on the edges, and then they can get chucked in there. That needs more liquid. I cooked out too much of. I had it on too high of a boil, and cooked out too much of my uh, juice. Perilla, yes, that's the other name for it. I think that's growing in my driveway, the purple kind. I think. I want to add some more liquid to this tomato sauce, but this would be an opportunity to add a flavorful liquid. We could go with a stock. I've got some stock concentrates. I could quickly make up a stock. I've also got some wine. What do you think? Quarter cup of red wine in there. Uh, I'm going to throw a quarter cup of red wine in there. Uh, it's definitely an American wine. Uh, it's got this very American rabbit on it. That is definitely a rabbit, which are known to be prolific in the Americas. There are no other animals with large feet like that. Sorry, I had to move my camera because the wine is stored directly behind the screen. Um, I'm a little less concerned about that because the flavor of the wines is not a uh, like that is too hot. There are grapes in America, and you can make wine out of them. So if I was just drinking the wine, it's going to taste different. But oh my god, that's not great. Ooh boy, I hope that doesn't come back to bite me. It's hot. Uh, okay. No, okay. I will show you this once I find all the pieces. We may have slightly contaminated our onions and peppers here. Bring it back to the countertop. Look what I found on my pepper. It's a sticker. That's unfortunate. I hope I got it all. There's a little bit stuck to my pan. Does anybody know if those stickers are non-toxic? Well, I don't see any more bits of it, so I'm going to assume it's good and stop looking for more bits. Get these guys in here. Well, I guess we're going to find out together if the stickers they put on at the store are toxic. I have to assume they're not, right? They would have to have like they'd have warnings all over them. If they were toxic, like you must take this off before eating, because America is an incredibly litigious country, and they would have been sued into the ground if those things were actually toxic. God, this still needs more liquid. It still feels much too dry. And I'm wondering if I just want to put some water in at this point. Temperature up slightly. And yeah, I'm going to add some water to this because this needs to actually like simmer, not just fry the bottom. So I cooked it too aggressively at the start, and it went too dry. But this is a good chance to switch it to the top back burner, and it can bruddle away for a while I shape my meatballs. And actually, to help it, we have it on record for the lawyers if it's toxic. To help it not dry out again, I do actually have a lid for this large pan. So we will make sure it's on a pretty low temp so it doesn't go crazy in there. And slap the lid on it so nobody can see it anymore. Oh, I had the camera pointed the wrong way. Okay. Knife out of way. Should I put some garlic powder in there or some fresh garlic? Ooh, I know. I've got this stuff and I don't use it very often, but I've still got it. This pre-minced garlic. There's a little bit of this left. I'm going to throw that into the sauce. Oh, there's a big scoop of it there. Again, I'm calling all garlic and onions fair game because there's some growing in my front yard. You're not hot yet, so I can just take you off. Big scoop of garlic. Get it mixed in. Fresh garlic would lose its fresh, punchy pungency in a simmered sauce anyways, so I'm not super worried about using the pre-minced stuff in this application. If you want that fresh, bright garlic flavor, pre-mince is always going to let you down. New York Times says the stickers are edible. Well, who am I to doubt the New York Times? They just keep trying to acquire all the fun things to do on the internet and charge you for them. That's the sign of an upstanding organization. Let's see. I need a tray on which to catch the meatballs as I make them. I don't think we're going to fill up this tray, but I want the tray to be large enough that they're not all over each other while I'm doing it. So we're going to use this oversized tray and some parchment so I don't have to wash the tray. Let's see. The tray wants to be right there on the left where my black sheet normally goes. The black sheet's going to have to come over here. So here's a process I'm unfamiliar with. Shaping ground meat around a cheese. Oh, what was that? I had like a hiccup crossed with a burp. A burp up. Oh, that doesn't sound good. A burp up. So I think you just take one of these and you kind of enclose it, and then you pinch off the extra, and you call that a meatball? Think it's too small? Might be too small. I'm gonna make it bigger. Because they're gonna shrink up. Now, American style meatballs are usually quite generous in size. So we'll take a bigger wad this time, not pinch off any extra. Take a cheese, pop it in the middle, and just kind of roll the meat around it. Pinch it shut. That one's much more generously sized than the first one. We might actually pinch that part of that one off because that one's even bigger than the first one. Okay, I guess I'll just continue on with this. I need to get a feel for what the right size to pinch out of the wad is. Take a cheese, put it in, fold, tuck together, let rest. It's like making little tiny burger patties, except when you're done, instead of leaving them flat, you turn them into a ball. Boy, I hope after all this work, they work. goal here is to get the meat cooked through, the outside nicely browned, and the cheese in the middle melty. I cut too many cheese. That's fine. I also want there to be no airspace in there with my cheese, because air in a trapped container will try to expand and could rupture my balls. And ain't nobody want ruptured balls. I'm sure somebody wants ruptured balls, but you know, the average person does not want ruptured balls. I can hear the burners creaking back there. I should check on that sauce. But my hands are all goopy. Goopy. Covered in raw bison and raw egg. uh, oh, I've got some frame drops again. Just noticed. Not very many, but some. Considering my PC has nothing to do right now except for run OBS and send it to Twitch, I shouldn't be having any frame drops. There are no programs running in the background that are drawing any processing power. Um, I should check it. I need to check it without getting goop on my. Oh, it's a boiling. Uh, down to a 3. Having the lid on there is helpful because I'm not losing big clouds of steam as it cooks. It has a chance to condense back down, so I don't lose all my liquid. But good shout. It was at a pretty vigorous boil inside there. Uh, I'm really inconsistent with the size of these things. That. So I hope these work. We're gonna have to do a cross section cheese stretch when we're done with these things. Split one open and see if we get the molten goodness in the middle. Uh, yeah, that's about right. We're gonna have a couple of smaller ones toward the end here, or one massive one. But I'm gonna err toward the smaller actually, because it's going to be easier to cook them than it will be one massive one. Biggest piece of cheese goes in the last little scrap of meat. If any of them has a chance of exploding, it's this one. Okay, and we got some extra cheese there that probably has meat goop on it, so I'm not sure what to do with it. Since I wasn't able to keep the individual cheese pieces totally isolated from my fingers. The big wedge on the side is safe. I didn't touch that for sure. But I may have lost my chance at snacking cheese by touching them. We'll get that guy in there, out of the way before I. Yeah, I don't think they're going to actually explode, but that's what I mean by explode is leak out like a hot pocket or a pizza roll, where they kind of go out one side and a little burst of cheese comes out. Um, Front burner called into action with large pan. Some oil to get us started. Hoping there will enough fat will render out of the meatballs that the amount of oil in the pan will increase rather than decrease. But who knows? We might be able to fit them all in there, actually. Let's get the pan heating first. I want it just barely shy of medium on my stove. Yeah, I can work. The risk is that if the meat layer is too thin, it might contract and not be able to contain the cheese in the middle. It's a matter of ratios. So that one that has the big chunk of cheese and that was right at the end, that one is a risk of maybe not having enough meat to fully contain the cheese. But I guess we'll find out, won't we? I guess we'll find out, won't we? Now, having the cheese inside of the meatballs is also helpful because Parmesan is not an American cheese. And I didn't pick up any grana. So I won't be parming the top of this dish. What do you think? Can I eat these little snackers, or are they off limits? Too late. I ate one of them. Well, I guess I'm gonna die now. Mm. This is a good cheese. This Oaxaca cheese. It's like now that it's up to room temperature, it's so soft that it almost melts as soon as you put it in your mouth. It's like a much softer mozzarella. Let's check on our thing here again. It's still at a vigorous boil. I guess I'll bring the temperature down a little bit more. Is it hot? It is a little bit hot. If I take the lid off, the boil will definitely go down because it'll lose all the steam. What's happening is that it's trapping steam in there, and the steam is causing the heat to be totally enclosed. But we're not losing any liquid because the steam is not escaping. So I guess I can just keep it sealed up on a low temperature and it's fine. Now we're just waiting for this to heat up so I can fry off the outside of my meatballs. Mm. If you've never had Oaxaca cheese, I recommend it. Good stuff. Um, okay. Okay. So I'm waiting. My oil is definitely getting there pretty quickly. I'm waiting for the oil to warm up so I can start frying off these meatballs. We should talk about the starch element to this because spaghetti and meatballs is the classic item. But spaghetti is not an American thing. That's 100% an Italian thing that got imported. And as I mentioned, I couldn't find a corn-based pasta that I was willing to use. Um, by the look of the few I was able to find, they're not very structurally stable because they only make them in very short shapes. And I'm guessing that if you tried to make a long spaghetti, it would just disintegrate because it doesn't have that gluten to make it strong. So that leaves us with a choice. We either stick with the traditional item, which is spaghetti, or we treat this more like a chili topping and serve it over the top of polenta, or what the package literally says is cornmeal mush because it's just ground corn, which I think would be a good flavor combo because that's how I usually serve chili. We farmers in voting for the polenta. Um, that's how I normally serve chili when I make chili. Is I'll make polenta and then I'll spoon the chili over the top. You know, you say that. If I'd thought of that, I don't I don't want to make little polenta balls because I'm afraid that they will end up being cooked unevenly. Um, uh, I usually go with the firmer polenta, but I guess it's kind of halfway between. It's really mushy when it's really hot, but it sort of sets up into a almost jello-y thing once it cools off a bit. My pan is definitely ready for the balls. So let's get them on the go. If we're lucky, they'll all fit, but I think there's going to be too many because I don't want to crowd them because they're at risk of sticking to each other at this stage. So yeah, we're going to have to do 2 batches because I won't be able to fit these last few on there. Yes, corn is the American grain, so having a corn-based starch element to serve this over the top of would be the on-theme element, and I think it would be pretty tasty. If I'd thought of gnocchi, which I need to get like my own Discord server where we can chat about ideas and sort of prep things that might need to be prepped more in advance than while I'm cooking. Um, if I'd thought of gnocchi, I could have tried making corn potato gnocchi. Um, oh, not that firm, Goldie. Not like that. I've bought that stuff in the tube. When I make it at home, it's much softer than that. It's more like a mashed potato. Uh, if I'd thought of gnocchi in advance, I could have tried making a corn and potato gnocchi because I did make gnocchi here on stream before, and that wasn't that hard. It might be harder without the wheat flour in it to act as a binder, but I don't have time now to get the potatoes ready to go because you really gotta grate them up. You can't just so. I think we're gonna nix the gnocchi because it would be something I would have to have thought of earlier when I was making. Just grabbed the wrong tongs, put them back, and then didn't grab the right tongs. What am I thinking? Um, Okay, okay. They're not quite ready on the bottom. Mmm, they smell great. Ooh, what am I smelling? Some of it's the bison. The bison has a little bit of a different smell than beef. I think it's honestly, and maybe I'm super biased, I think bison is tastier than beef. Um, and now that it's comparably priced, um, I prefer it uh, in a lot of cases. I think I'm smelling one of the fresh herbs coming out. Anyways, I want a nice crusty brown exterior on these guys, so we will. I might actually turn the heat up just a little bit. Okay, I finished off the cheese. I'll stop snacking on little cheeses. Now, I think the Italian way of doing meatballs would be to bake them to make sure that they're cooked through. Whereas the American way that I'm actually most familiar with from anime, no, I'm kidding, uh, is to fry them off like this and then simmer them in the sauce to cook them through. Uh, oh, somebody asked what anime I was. Oh, that was a bit up there. Uh, I've lost. I think I've lost track of it now. One of you asked about the anime that I was getting these from. I'm not currently watching it, but I watched Food Wars through, and I absolutely loved it. And to the point of I watched the whole thing more than once, and I actually learned quite a bit from it as well. Up until the last season, that meatball ruptured just a little bit. Um, Sadly, the show at the end of its run, and it was actually the manga at the end of its run, um, kind of lost its way, and it was because, and I understand it, and I have to nothing they could have done. They had a chef on their staff who gave them the. Oop, I just bumped my camera. Who gave them their who wrote the recipes, made everything uh like work, look great, all this nice stuff. Um, like they weren't just throwing into the wind. They had a chef with them making the recipes that they then put into their story. So the recipes are over the top and grandiose, but they are actually possible, and the techniques that they're using are really difficult, but they're realistically difficult. Until the last story arc, which ended up being the last season in the anime, their chef got sick and couldn't help them anymore, and stayed very sick for long enough that they simply couldn't return. Um, and it shows. Oh no, that one's rupturing. That one's rupturing. Oh no, they're rupturing. So I really liked it, but it does kind of fall down at the end because the writers keep going, but they no longer have that professional chef consult. I still recommend it. It's unique. It's the author's first non-hentai manga, and it shows. Especially at the beginning. My balls are a little bit less ball shaped now, And 2 of them have ruptured just a little bit. Well, one of them has ruptured a little bit. This one has ruptured. You can't see it, it's facing me. It looks like it's actually like peeling open. So that one's probably going to fully burst at some point. I'm trying to get all the sides cooking as well instead of just the top and bottom, since they've developed a distinct top and bottom. But yeah, so that's the anime that I keep getting all these, keep getting ideas from, or kept getting ideas from. If you're familiar with Babish from Binging with Babish, he's changed his thing. He's the Babish universe now or something. Um, one of his other uh, one of his staff, one of the other chefs in his group, does specifically food from anime. Um, Anime with Alvin. He's done a few things from Food Wars. Those are pretty good. I've got more ruptures happening. My hubris. They're almost like cubes. They're almost coming out like little blocks instead of balls. Oh, was he? Maybe I can get poached by a bigger name that can like draw me in. The lid is hot on that guy. Um, but yeah, so Alvin's done a few Food Wars things. Um, Nothing from the last season because he doesn't have a spiced chainsaw. That is a spoiler, but come on, it's so silly. What do you think? Are they browned enough? They're not quite all browned on every side. I just want to make sure that none of the sides are overtly still pink. Get enough that nice crusty brown, because the crusty brown part is flavor. Can you hear the sizzle? Am I close enough to hear the sizzling? It's sizzling quite a lot. Ooh, the cheese. Little burned on cheese crispies are forming. That's good. Okay, that guy still needs some time on that side. I'm going to move this batch over into my sauce and nestle them in there. And they will all fit once I've got them all in there. Okay, let's get these cheese bits off of here before I throw the next batch in, because they're already getting a little bit burned. But we'll just chuck them in the sauce. Little burned on cheese flakes. Sounds like a plan to me. Good thing I used a nonstick. This would be impossible to get off if I didn't. I would be going at this with my steel scraper if I did this in my stainless pan. Yes, I'm putting them in the sauce to continue cooking. I just wanted to make sure that I got as much of that nice, flavorful brown, crispy exterior as I could, because it's flavor. That last time I'm touching raw meat, so I'm washing my hands. I think that the first batch, by the end there, all of them had sprung a leak of some sort. Some of them had sprung substantial leaks and formed those little crispy puddles. Some of them had only just barely started to leak, but I think they're going to continue leaking in the sauce. Yeah, there's a few little white puddles forming in my sauce. So we might not get one that has a good, clean cheese stretch because they've leaked out. But ooh, the pan is hotter this time. I can turn them a little bit more aggressively. Let's see. This pan is clean because I put a sheet on it before I used it for anything. So it can go right back in the cupboard. I don't have to wash it, which is nice for a change. I hate washing the large sheet pan in my tiny sink. Sadly, our friend the Tiny Whisk did not come into play today, and I don't think there's going to be anything that could possibly happen at this stage. Uh, so he can just be our here for solidarity today. My color corrector back in his color correcting spot. I also don't have a specific drink planned. I've got that rabbit wine, um, but I kind of think like a beer is more American. Americans love their beer. And I've actually got beer from literally just up the road at the brewery that I live next to. Oh, not that one, the other one. One of the two breweries that I live within 2 blocks of. Yeah, Wisconsin. You just walk down the street and there's a brewery making beer, and you just get one. It's a magical place of beer and cheese. Uh, I guess my pan wasn't quite heated up when I started the first round because these guys have cooked much more quickly, and I think that has prevented them from leaking quite as much. Although I say that one has just sprung a leak, facing you, so you saw it before I did even. Uh, but I think I can get these out of here before they develop the leaky, crispy cheese puddles. That one is probably the one that I made at the end that was not enough meat and too much cheese. Anyways, I think these guys can go in the sauce already. Okay. Heat off on that and move it off the burner. I'm going to put it directly in the sink since it's quite hot and slightly unstable. Oh, okay. Tell you what, while I've got this, while we're thinking about this, I'm going to taste that sauce. And I might leave the lid off because now I actually want it to cook down a little bit because now we've had it cooking for a time and I would like the tops of the meatballs to kind of stay brown. Let's get a scoop with some tomato in it. See how. It's still kind of tomatoey, like has the fresh tomato flavor. It's got some spice to it from that chili pepper I threw in there. Does it need something that I feel okay with adding in the context of my theme? I would add some black pepper. I think it needs some black pepper. Uh, but I'm not going to add black pepper for previously discussed reasons. Boy. Little pinch of salt. It's already got garlic powder and it's got other garlic in it. I guess it just needs to cook together a little bit more. Okay. Let's get back over here. Ugh, get this guy down. So, here we've got the Pearl Milling Company. You may know it as the company formerly known as. I was trying to keep the ingredients. I wasn't using the term pre-colonial. I was using the like native to the Americas. But yeah, that's the theme I'm going for. You've nailed it. So we've got the one. I admit that the Oaxaca cheese is a bit of a stretch because it's a Mexican cheese, but it's made with cow's milk. So that's a bit of a stretch, but tomatoes, onions, two kinds of capsicum peppers. The meat is bison meat. Um, the spice. The thing is, I'm going for is the flavors are American flavors. That's the theme I'm going for is to keep the flavors secure. Which is why I'm going to go with the cornmeal. We're going to go with the non wheat pasta option, which is in this case corn. Fine ground yellow cornmeal. Now with less millipedes. Oh, I'm aware where Oaxaca is. The thing is, Oaxaca cheese didn't exist before colonial times because they didn't have cheese making in the Americas prior to European colonists. And Oaxaca cheese is also made from cow's milk, and they didn't have cows. So I think it's a stretch, but I'm willing to accept it because I want some cheese element here. Where did I put my half cup measure? All it had in it was breadcrumbs. So there. Um, but yeah, I am using a cheese that is an American, uh, like bread cheese, rather than a European one that's just been rebranded over here. Uh, this has got recipes all over it, but I just want the basic proportions. 1 to 4. 1 cup of cornmeal, 1 cup of cold water, 3 cups of boiling water. Non-stick pot. Super helpful for making uh, something like this where it wants to stick to the sides. It makes it easier to get out when I'm done. But I'm counting South America as well, so not just United Statesian food, American food. Because like the uh, the capsicum peppers, they came from somewhere in the South as well. Okay, cold water. Now I've done this wrong a couple times, so we'll see if I do it right this time. I've done this wrong and then had to mash out the lumps. So much like with cornstarch, when you're working with cornmeal in this capacity, it needs to be hydrated in cold water. Actually, we can use Tiny Whisk for this. Haha, he was useful. Useful in the end. Uh, you need to hydrate this stuff in cold water before you chuck it into the boiling water because it will, the heat will cause the starches to seize up and you'll get lumps. So you hydrate it in cold water so it can soak up some water before it has a chance to seize. And then you incorporate it into the boiling water while stirring. And it should prevent it from going lumpy. And that's why I wasn't confident in trying to make polenta-shaped lumps or gnocchi-shaped lumps out of this, because when those lumps do form, like if you did it on purpose and got them cooked through, then fine. But if they formed this way, you'd have dry cornmeal in the middle, which would not be super nice to eat. So I think you could do it, but I don't want to do it. It's something I don't want to do completely off the cuff, uh, because I feel like there's a danger of the results being something not so nice. We can revisit that. That's a good idea to put in my docket of ideas. Try to make gnocchi out of corn and potato instead of wheat flour. scrape down my sides in my sauce a little bit. We are losing volume just a skosh, which is good. So I don't want that little crust to form around the edge. If I can help it. Keep those flavors all up in there. Bring us back to the stove, since that's where the action is, even though it's not super actiony right now. This is... No wonder it's not boiling. I forgot to turn it on. Pro tip. Jovial Jovian's pro tip of the day. If you want water to boil, turn the heat on. This has been the pro tip of the day. Thirsty. I've been talking a lot. Where's my water glass? I think I left it in the other room. I did. I've been chatting up a storm. Oh, if you're those of you who were here on last week's shows, you'll remember I had some interviews last week. One of them got back to me shockingly fast and at a very strange time of day to say no. I got a rejection from the Red Cross at 2:30 a.m. on Sunday. So that was kind of weird. I don't know who was live at that point. It makes it kind of feel like I got auto-filtered by something, which maybe I did. And on the other one, the library hasn't gotten back to me yet. I'm going to contact them tomorrow, since they said they'd get back to me at the beginning of the week, and tomorrow was the middle of the week. So they didn't wake me up. I saw it in the morning. They sent me an email. So it wasn't a rude interruption in the middle of the night. It was in the morning I saw the email, and the email had come in at 2:30 a.m. I was like, why are they sending an email at 2:30 a.m.? So that was great. But I've already got another interview lined up, so they're coming hot and fast. Seems like almost seems like the job market is a crazy chaos roller coaster right now. You can stick your name into a position and get an interview in like half a day. So yeah, fingers still crossed on the library. Red Cross decided against me. And the next one I have lined up is actually with the county as an administrative something. And last time I tried applying with the county in 2017, they never replied. Like, I got the automatic bounce reply that, like, we received your application. But then literally no application or nothing after that. This time they've jumped right to an interview. So fingers crossed. Now's the time to get him, as far as I can tell. The job market is still relatively bouncing, and the economy has not yet caved in on itself. Okay, that water is boiling. You can probably tell. I'm getting out the giant version of Tiny Whisk. Let's put a pinch of salt. Let's put a pinch of salt in there before I do this. Get the water moving and get this stuff in there and stir it actively while you're doing it to prevent it from forming lumps. Perfect. And then you keep stirring until you get your right thickness. If you stop stirring, it will start forming little volcanoes like that and burn the hell out of your hand. Don't stop stirring. Don't stop stirring. Don't stop stirring. Don't stop stirring. Ow, that hurt. That hurt. I'm going to turn the heat completely off and just work this on residual. That one stung. Okay. There's no lumps. I'm confident in setting it aside. I have way more than I need, and I burned my hand a little bit. But that's okay because polenta keeps pretty well. I can put it in the fridge. It'll seize up, and you can like cut little slices out of it. You could turn it. You could do what Weaveformer was suggesting up above with, or was that Goldie? Oh, I've lost track. You're both purple. Everyone's purple today. Um, Goldie. Goldie suggested slicing and frying. Uh, I got a million purple people in here. So that's our starch. That's our topping. It's just a question of, is the sauce cooked down enough to be tasty? Ah, it really hurt. It got me right on my fingertip. And there it is, little spots of yellow on the side of my stove. Okay, okay. Tomatoes still have a little bit of firmness to them, but they don't taste like fresh tomato anymore at all. They have that cooked tomato flavor. So now I think it's just a question of getting a little bit more of the liquid cooked down so that it's not super soupy, because there's a little bit of a puddle in the middle. And I would stir that in, but I want the tops of the meatballs to stick out and stay not coated in sauce. For the plating that we're going to have, which is fine. It gives us a chance to think about. Let me scrape this down because those side polentas are the little thin edge on the polenta. If you let it stay there, will turn into a crisp sheet that you can eat, but it's like a tough corn chips, like a corn paper. Mm. Mm. It's good stuff. So I'm scraping that down so that I don't have those little crisp edges because I don't want those for this application. What do you think? You can see what I've got there. I've got polenta. We're going to serve a nice big scoop of that sauce and those meatballs smack on top of it. I feel like I want something green in there. And if this was not America themed, I would reach for basil and parsley. Get some fresh basil in there and some fresh parsley in there. I can't use those. Um, How do you feel about a thinly sliced green onion as our green sort of topper finisher thing to give us some green and some fresh, some bright flavor to go with this? Uh, I could do more sage. We've got the sage outside. Um, in the heat, I'd have to brave the heat to get the sage, but it is available. Um, yes, there's actually you may have missed it at the beginning. There's sage in the meatballs. Um, I was going out to buy sage for this recipe today, and on the way to the grocery store, I passed a greenhouse, and I poked my head in, and I found sage, and it was the same price for a sage, like a plant, as it would have been for a container of cut fresh sage at the grocery store. So I just bought sage at the greenhouse, stuck it in a pot, and I used it today for this. I thought it was a better use. So I could do sage, more sage, like fresh sage on top as a green, a little green splash. I also have some green onions, and I've been, as I've been saying, green onions are fair game because onions are some kind of wild onion is everywhere. Um, I've also got chives potentially, but they're kind of small, so I would not be comfortable taking a big chunk of chives. But I've got these green onions. I could just take a green onion, swoop that top part into little skinny little slices. I do like green onions as a general topping. Uh, oh, I've been trying to grow my own green onions, and my onion babies, my little tiny onion babies, they don't look healthy. They look very unhealthy. They're very tiny. They dry out really fast. They don't have any sort of root system. I mean, they have some root system, but it's not very well developed. Um, they keep falling over. Not even in wind. They just kind of dry out and lose their rigor and fall over. Um, I pulled two of them out of their pots to put sage in, and I stuck them in the ground. Uh, I don't normally have a garden plot out there, so I keep all of my herbs in pots. So I just kind of took my trowel, carved a little patch in the corner of the lawn, and jammed the little tiny onions in there in the hopes that they'll just be fine. I can't tell if how my sauce is doing from here. So I might not end up getting any green onions out of my little onion babies. Uh, I planted them from seed, so I think that I just started them too late. They aren't big enough. They weren't big enough when I put them out there. Now that it's very hot, they keep drying out because their roots are so shallow. Um, oh, yeah, okay. I'm going to take the heat off of that guy. Actually, bring him over here to take completely off the heat because we no longer have a puddle. We've got little holes where the boiling liquid is pushing up through the stuff. And I want to make sure my bottom hasn't stuck or burned. And it has not. But our sauce is very thick and saucy now. Yeah. We haven't burned, but our sauce is very, very thick, which is what I was waiting for. which means that we can, in fact, move to service. And for this one, big white plate. No reason to not use big white plate. Scooper. So here, I'll get us on the right camera angle here. So this is the consistency I usually make my polenta. So like a mashed potato consistency. And then as it cools, it firms up even more. So good hefty amount of that stuff. I wish I had 2 scoopers of that shape. I want to use that to scoop out the sauce and meatballs as well. I'll just rinse so I can get a clean scoop. If I was doing this just without the show part, I wouldn't worry about it and just pollute my sauce with little scraps of polenta, but I want a nice clean scoop for the top. Oop. Get up there, meatball. Okay, okay. Lots of those left. Kind of clean up my edges here. A little sprinkle of green onion to take the place of what I would do with a parsley. Our cheese is inside our meatball. Let me duck to the other room real quick to grab pre-digging in shots. We're going to actually have to grab some post-digging in shots for this one as well because I want to get a picture of the cheesy middle. So we are going to have 2 trips to the old camera station today. Gotta artfully arrange this so I can get the best angle on it. Okay. Bunch of photos of that. Coming back. Crossing. So, here we are. Gonna get out a little knife here. I want to get. I'll eat the polenta. I stuck the fork in for plating, but I want to get that cheesy middle if I can out of one of these guys. Little bit. Now that one was obviously a leaker. Let's try this one. This one didn't have an obvious leak on it, so I might get away with doing this guy. Come on. Cheese stretch. Oh, well, I don't have a cheese stretch. The cheese melted a little bit too much for the cheese stretch. It's a very oozy liquid. It's very molten. So I won't get a cheese stretch. At the best I'll get is it just kind of ooze out. But let's do a taste. I'm gonna get one of these meatball pieces. Actually, I'm gonna cut that into a quarter again, so I can get a reasonably sized bite with everything in it. Mm, mm, mm. Ooh. Okay, the bison flavor comes through front and center. Um, I think bison has a more. It's almost more beefy than beef. Um, it's like it's a faintly sweet beef. And it's coming through front and center. I like that flavor. I like the flavor of bison. Um, the herbs, they're not jumping out at me in any way particular. I assume that I would notice if they weren't there, but I don't notice that they're there. The flavor of the cheese is lost. It's giving a sort of a nice creamy texture, but the flavor of the cheese is so mild that with all these other pretty prominent flavors here, I'm kind of losing it. The little green onion bits actually are a nice finish on this. A little crisp, bright, fresh, herbaceous flavor on top of all these other ones that have been very much cooked down. Uh, we left the sauce go, I think, just the right amount. You've got nice, distinct chunks of tomato, but they have a texture. They've got a little bit of resistance to them. They're not just mush, but they have that flavor of fully cooked through tomato sauce. Um, so I think that's a good balance for those. Yeah, I'm quite happy with this. If I wasn't constraining myself to the theme, I would grate some Parmesan over the top of this. I think that would make this really pop. And I also probably would have put some black pepper in both the meat and the sauce. Um, I think that the coriander I did add is not making itself well known. The interestingly, I want to taste the allspice. Actually, yeah, the allspice is that. That's what was. It comes through with the meat. It really kind of pushes the meat flavor forward, which is interesting. I'm not well, unless I really focus on it. I can't taste the allspice, but when I really focus on it, it's kind of pushing the flavor of the bison. Interesting. So I think that was a good decision to put that in there. I'm happy with this one. This is a good one. And aside from some elements of technique, you could have made this in America before. Who discovered America now? The Vikings. Um, you could have made this because you technically could have made the cheese using bison milk if you wanted to. It's just the cheese making technique hadn't been brought over until the Europeans came over. Uh yeah. So 2 thumbs up from me. I'm gonna enjoy this one. I'm gonna want to take a picture of it with the Meatballs split open so you can see the little cheesy nugget in the middle. But I am going to bring us to a wrap up. Oh, good shout from those dancing beers. My dancing beer. I'll give it a plug while I'm here. A Bohemian Pilsner. Nice and delicious. And actually, I think this is a better pairing with this than a glass of wine would be, because it has an almost hamburgery flavor, like a nice. The meat has almost like the flavor of a nice hamburger rather than like an Italian meatball. So I will give you a cheers. Mmm, good beer. If we were on Redbeard's show, I would say that that is a hoppy beer for his bingo card. Anyways, we are coming to the end of the show. The humidity has caused my hair to go especially crazy today. Um, on top of its normal crazy mad scientist frizz. Uh, so yeah, we're at the end of the show, and I'm going to hand you guys off. We've got a chunk of people here to hand off. Let's see who's on right now. Oh my god. Okay. I have never managed to do this because I always end just before she starts. We are going to raid KL. She's not quite started. She's starting in 4 minutes. I want to raid. Okay. Back to chat for a moment. Back to. I'm glad to be in entertainment. Felix tells me that's what they do too. Is watch me while making dinner. If I had like a pre-chat with anybody, I could uh, we could cook together. I'd have to set up a Discord or something for that. I'm going to try to stall for 4 minutes. Please stick around if you can. I want to raid KL. KL has been playing. She hasn't quite started yet. KL's been playing Knights of the Old Republic 2 for the first time ever. She just recently finished playing Knights of the Old Republic 1 for the first time ever. And her career is going astronomical because she's been making Star Wars based content and she's got tons of viewers. So on YouTube, not so much on Twitch, but on YouTube. But Knights of the Republic 2 is one of the best RPGs, I think. So I'm going to wait a little bit so I can raid into her because oftentimes on my show days, I'll end and then shortly thereafter she'll start and I'll jump over there and be like, oh, if only I could have raided. Because I can tell you, that's what I'm going to be watching later, is KL playing Knights. I always end before I eat because I don't have a place where you guys can see me and the food and I can eat because we're in my kitchen. I'd have to have a separate like table set up. Plus, who wants to watch someone eat? Some people do want to watch people eat, but I'm gonna be right back because I forgot to take a picture with the sliced open meatball, and I just ate a piece. So one more picture before I go because I want that inner core of cheese in my record. Okay. Coming back. Uh, so, yeah. What was I saying? Knights of the Republic. One of my favorite games. It's so good. It's been a couple minutes. I'll keep an eye on her channel. I'm actually going to go and look directly at her channel and see if she started yet. With the tab muted. Uh, what was I saying? I'm getting distracted. I'm distracting myself by trying to do 3 things at once. Okay, she's live. We're going to go raid. Raid! So I was saying, we're raiding KL. I've only recently started watching KL, and I already love her content. The Knights of the Republic playthroughs are a delight to watch. And she's got a dog that frequently appears on stream. So stay tuned for that. But be aware, no spoilers for the game. Thanks. I will have a nice meal. This is one of the. I don't think this is all-time greatest. That pork steak last week was possibly the best thing I've ever made, but it's gonna be hard to top that one. But this is definitely up there. This is pretty good. And I enjoyed cooking within the constraints. I'll have to keep that in mind down the line. Set myself a boundary for my cookery and cook within it. Here comes our countdown. So I will see you next time.